For every police shooting that makes national headlines and sparks protests, there's many more that go relatively unnoticed.
And they both got out of their car and were pointing their guns and screaming at him.
Like this one in Southeast Portland that's been under investigation with very few answers for almost a year.
I just want to know why this happened. I want to know how.
And if you've been wondering when enough people will get vaccinated for us to reach herd immunity against COVID, I've got some bad news for you. It's possible that will never happen, at least in some parts of the country. Here's the story.
We've been talking about that one for a while on this show, haven't we? Thanks for being with us, and thanks for always talking with us. I'm Dan Haggerty. This is The Story. If you haven't watched this before, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say talking with us, we want to hear from everybody who watches this show. Help us kind of steer the ship and tell the news in your community. All the ways to connect with us at the bottom of your screen. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. Let's get started. And we're going to begin right with the big story tonight. Now, when George Floyd was murdered on camera by a police officer, something ignited. It sparked a global movement. People demanded answers and accountability, and less than a year later, nearly every detail of that tragedy had become public. The officer who did it was arrested, tried, and convicted. Transparency worked in the face of tragedy and uncertainty. But what happens when the world isn't paying attention or demanding those answers as loudly? Take example of the death of Israel Berry. A Gresham police officer shot and killed Berry on May 31st, less than a week after George Floyd was killed. Yet in Berry's case, police have released very few details. The officer is still on paid leave now nearly a year later. Here's a guest investigative reporter, Kyla Boshi.
On the same night that thousands of protesters marched through Portland calling for police accountability after the death of George Floyd, a Gresham police officer shot and killed a man. The May 31st shooting barely made headlines. And nearly a year later, the man's family and friends still don't have answers.
I just want to know why this happened. I want to know how. And I don't think it's fair to just sweep it under the rug. It's a big deal. His family lost a great brother, a great son, a great nephew, and I lost a great friend. Sorry.
The shooting death of 49-year-old Israel Berry highlights some of the very issues raised by protesters who called for greater transparency and police accountability, which can help build trust between officers and the community.
Be honest, open communications, let us know what's going on. They refuse. That part makes me frustrated.
To date, police have released just a few sentences describing the deadly shooting. At about 9:35 p.m., a Gresham officer and several Portland Police Bureau officers responded to a call of a disturbance in the 12400 block of Southeast Kelly Street involving a white male adult who was making threats.
There's an unknown male out front in a black Chrysler honking the horn, threatening to 55 caller break out the windows of the vehicle.
Dispatch audio suggests there'd been some type of dispute over a phone.
It looks like this is a known subject to our caller. We had a call about him earlier where he stole her phone.
Neighbor Laura Roediger went outside after hearing a car driving loudly up and down the street.
He was honking like obnoxiously, like over and over, and going out there, and he'd come back around and do it again.
Moments later, she says, several police units arrived and blocked the car.
The police showed up there pretty fast, and they threw on their brakes, and they both got out of their car and were pointing their guns and screaming at him.
Then,
Copy, expired at 12405 Southeast Kelly Street.
All the cops here are fine. Just still inside the vehicle. He's likely been hit.
according to a press release, the Gresham officer deployed deadly force, and a male subject was shot and pronounced deceased at the scene. The Portland officers on scene were witnesses and did not deploy deadly force. Police later identified the man shot and killed as Israel Berry.
Did he have any weapons?
He wasn't the type of person to carry a weapon. He carried his keys on a lanyard. He didn't even carry a pocket knife or anything like that. He never carried anything. Not that my ever knowledge that he had any kind of weapons ever.
We don't know if there's body camera footage of the shooting, but there should be. Gresham police have body cams, and officers are required to have them turned on. Public records show the officer who shot and killed Berry, Gresham police officer James Doyle, has been on paid critical incident leave since May 31st, 2020, the day of the shooting. As for any other records, our request was denied by the City of Portland, which is handling the investigation. The city claims the records can't be released because they're being used for criminal law purposes, open investigation, or enforcement. KGW is appealing that decision to the Multnomah County District Attorney.
We just want to know what happened. We just want some kind of answer.
Taylor Phillips, a friend of Israel Berry, wonders why the investigation has taken so long. And it has. A review of all police shootings in Portland since 2018 found the average investigation takes a month and a half, or 49 days, from the day of the shooting until the grand jury determines whether deadly force was justified. The investigation into Israel Berry's death has dragged on in silence for nearly a year, despite calls from the public for greater transparency and police accountability.
All right, let's debrief for a moment with Kyle Aboshi. Kyle, can you just tell us why the delay? Why is it taking so long? Do you have any idea?
That really is the big question here. We tried to get a very clear answer. We asked Portland Police, first of all. They said, you've got to ask the Multnomah County DA's office. So we reached out to the DA's office. A spokesperson said it's an ongoing investigation. They hope to release a statement sometime this week, and we're still waiting for that statement to kind of give us a better understanding why this delay is occurring and where the case stands now.
Another thing I found really interesting had to do with the body camera, and it was twofold. One, that we haven't seen the body camera footage, and two, that we really don't even know if it exists.
Right. Really interesting dynamic here. So two agencies responding, Portland Police and Gresham Police. So we know Portland Police, they don't have body cams, period. But Gresham Police, they do, and officers are required to use those body cams and have them activated. So in theory, there should be body camera footage, but they won't even confirm if indeed that body camera video exists or what it looks like. Obviously, like many other records in this case, we haven't seen it, so it remains a mystery.
Now, we have seen delays in every bit of government and social life here, especially when it comes to things to do with COVID, from the DMV to the employment department. How could that have impacted what we are seeing with the delay in this case?
Right. Well, especially the judicial system. Well, we've seen slowdowns there, certainly. But you look at many other officer-involved shootings around the country and what's happened there. They've been able to proceed. George Floyd case, for one example, right? That happened the very same week as the death of Israel Berry. But in that case, special prosecutor was assigned. We have seen all the evidence, all the details in that case. It even went to trial. In the case of Israel Berry, now 11 months later, we've got nothing.
Interesting. Good points. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Let's stay now on the topic of police and transparency for just a moment, because a supposed lack thereof of transparency may give the Department of Justice an excuse to take over the Portland Police Bureau. Should I repeat that? Did you know that was happening right now? It's a big story. And this is a big week for it, one that we've been waiting for, at least been told to wait for, since the DOJ sent this warning letter to PPB demanding a response. I asked the city attorney about this. They said this, quote, the parties have agreed that the city will provide a response by Friday, May 7th, 2021, which is this Friday. So we're waiting, though I kind of feel like I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I know we have covered this story a lot, but some of you might need to be caught up to speed a little bit. So let me give you a condensed version, kind of the Cliff's Notes version of this. Nearly a decade ago, in 2012, a DOJ investigation into use of force found that Portland police had deficiencies in policy, training, and officer accountability, and that they were acting unconstitutionally in some cases. The city agreed to address its policies, and they reached a settlement with the feds. So 3 years later, the DOJ wanted to see how things were going, so they checked in, and they found that the Bureau wasn't fully complying. So they made some amendments. They established a new community oversight group. They ensured officers who used deadly force would be interviewed about that within 48 hours. And they changed how they collect and report data. It seemed like everything was back on track until 2020. What a year that was, right? Police faced a lot of challenges in 2020, and one of them was sticking to that agreement with the DOJ. And here's one of the big examples for you. During the protests and riots, for instance, the DOJ logged more than 6,000 separate instances of use of force with PPB. Think of it this way. Okay, during all that time, during the weeks of nightly violence that we saw, how many videos did you see of police shooting tear gas or hitting someone with a baton or knocking someone to the ground? Each one of those
is supposed to be logged in a very specific way. And according to the DOJ, they weren't, or at least that's how it appears. And the city has until Friday to explain themselves and present a plan. Or, as it was explained to me by someone close to the case, Jason Renaud with the Mental Health Association of Portland, the feds could have the grounds to try and take over the Bureau.
We haven't heard from the city of Portland. That's what the DOJ has asked for. They have asked the city to respond. If the city is not willing to do that, and they haven't been willing so far, then the issue goes to mediation, which has not been successful in the past. And if it isn't successful in mediation, then the police bureau will go into the hands of a federal judge.
And that's a big deal. The federal judge could do hiring and firing and move things around. It could be big. Now, we're going to see if the city is willing to respond sometime between now and Friday. Now, when I first talked to Jason, who I interviewed there, he didn't think that they would. He didn't think that the city was going to be able to respond in time. But I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic. You know, the original deadline for the city's response was yesterday, or kind of today was the first, business day in that deadline. But they negotiated an extra few days, which I guess would be odd if they didn't intend to actually present something. So we're going to stay on top of this story. Let me know if you have any questions. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. All right, let's count some vaccines, shall we? More than 1.92 million Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose of the vaccine. We're getting close to 2 million here in this state. That's pretty close. And if you look at the percentage of people with at least the first dose of the vaccine, we are at 45.7% with one shot here in Oregon. In Washington, more than 3.62 million people have gotten at least their first dose. That works out to be 47.7% of the state's population. Now, I do want to talk about the concept of herd immunity with something we think is worth your time. Now, the New York Times, they published this story today with the headline, "Reaching herd immunity is unlikely in the U.S., experts now believe." Why? Why is it unlikely? Well, a big reason is vaccine hesitancy and the virus mutating faster than vaccinations are happening. And because of those mutations, experts now believe that we'd have to reach a higher level of immunity, 80% now, instead of the previous target of 60 to 70% of the population. They've got this map that kind of has the estimated vaccination rates in every county in the U.S. based on the percentage of people who said that they would probably or definitely get the vaccine. And you can see some areas with less than 70% of the population of the people living there saying that they're likely to get it. We want to zoom into our area here in the Northwest. Our estimated vaccinations here in Oregon and Washington are actually higher than a lot of other places. A lot of Western or even Eastern Washington are between 80 and 90%. Most of Northern Oregon is around 75 to 80%. Gets lower as you go into Southern Oregon. But it does seem like pretty good news when you look at this map for the folks around here, for us. But that's not quite how herd immunity is supposed to work. Because, as the article says, quote, "Given the degree of movement among regions, a small virus wave in a region with a low vaccination level can easily spill over into an area where a majority of the population is protected. And over time, if not enough people are protected, highly contagious variants may develop that can break through vaccine protection, land people in the hospital, and put them at risk of death." That is what experts are calling the worst case scenario. The best case scenario at this point, well, that would be short of total herd immunity, the virus becomes more like the seasonal mild cold that still travels around, but it doesn't put people in the hospital the same way that it does now. And the only way to get to that point, experts say, is to keep vaccinating as many of us as possible. Beaverton's school board race has gotten pretty intense, like armed protesters at district headquarters intense. But let's hear from one of the key players in that story, who's accused of having ties to an extremist group.
And I have nothing to do with the Proud Boys, nor do I want to.
Plus, we've got another Oregon State rep facing sexual harassment allegations. And this time, the accuser is a fellow lawmaker. When the story continues. A lot of good questions coming in. I was just off camera over there. I almost didn't make it back here in time for the end of the commercial breaks. I'm reading so many. Keep them coming. Ask your questions. Tell us what you want us to see covered. Give us your critiques on the coverage that we do now. Let me hear it. Use that hashtag #HeyDan on Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can email us. Anyway, reach out to us, and we'll connect you.
Now, we've got an update for you now on a story that we aired on Friday. It was about the Beaverton school board race. The full story is up online right now. But in short, this race has gotten so partisan and so heated that last week, people protested outside the district headquarters and police said that some of them came armed. A lot of controversy boils down to one candidate, Jeanette Shota. She's a conservative. She has strong takes on changing how the district teaches about things like sexuality and race, and her stances on those issues upset some left-wing activists. And that was part of the reason that they protested, but it wasn't the only reason. People also dug into her campaign finance records and found a $1,000 donation from a right-wing PAC called Free Oregon. And the founder of Free Oregon is a man named Ben Edel. You connecting all these dots here? Quickly, activists online accused him of having ties to a far-right extremist group, the Proud Boys. Now, those accusations were fueled by things like a video from March. It shows Edel speaking at a rally, which also featured a known Proud Boy who goes by the nickname Tiny. That's Tiny. Now, we talked to Edel about the allegations tied to that video. He says he's not ashamed of it. He's not ashamed of speaking there, but he added this about his alleged ties to the Proud Boys.
I have nothing to do with the Proud Boys, nor do I want to. And I didn't even know who Tiny was. And when I heard he was speaking, I thought, well, you know, he's got a big energy, the guy does. Shook his hand and moved on with my day. There's absolutely no affiliation or connection whatsoever. Since then, I've learned about the Proud Boys. And I don't know. I'm not impressed with. They're kind of like a biker club.
Now, we also talked to him at length about his donation to Jeanette Shota's campaign. She, I'll add, did decline to talk to us, but Edel says that he supports a lot of her takes. He also says he decided to get involved in school board politics after his son started remote learning and Edel heard what was being taught.
My first grade son was right next to me on my desk doing his art class online. And I heard his teacher ask them to draw themselves as they identify, but it was in the context of if you're a boy, you can draw yourself with short hair or a hat. If you're a girl, you can have a ponytail, or however you identify. And I thought, well, that's weird. They're first graders. So then I go to my son's school to pick up his packet on Mondays, and I see the BLM signs on the reader board, and I'm wondering, why is it that a political action group like the BLM, why are they on our school's reader board? Look, this May 18th election is historically a terribly low turnout. And I think we're going to see one of the biggest turnouts in a school board election in our state's history, if not in the last 20 to 30 years. Because of the online school, a lot of parents have woke up to what is actually happening in the schools, and they disagree with that. And so it's their right to vote for school board candidates that could possibly change that.
We'll continue to follow those elections for you. Now, for the first time in Oregon's history, women hold the majority of seats in the legislature's House of Representatives. Representative Andrea Valderrama took over for Diego Hernandez in March after he stepped down. An investigation found that Hernandez created a hostile workplace environment by sexually harassing 5 women at the Capitol. And it's that kind of behavior that women at the Capitol say they're still dealing with, despite a record number of them holding seats. Oregon Public Broadcasting reports that Democratic Representative Brad Witt has volunteered to step down as chair of the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee after another representative on that committee, Vicki Breeze Iverson, wrote a letter to Speaker Tina Kotek accusing Witt of sexual harassment. It's the latest in a series of accusations against men in Oregon's capital. In 2017, Democratic Senator Sarah Gelser accused Republican Senator Jeff Cruz of touching her inappropriately, and 15 other women reported similar experiences. Cruz resigned after an investigation showed a long-standing pattern of sexual harassment. And it's not just happening in Oregon's capital. The Associated Press reports since 2017, at least 109 state lawmakers in 40 states have faced public allegations of sexual misconduct or harassment. Last week, at the end of the House floor session, House Republican leader Christine Drazen read this letter.
In October of 2017, more than 100 women working in Oregon politics took a strong public stance against sexual harassment in state capitals, issuing a public letter that encouraged women to speak up when they've been harassed, bullied, or dehumanized. This is a timely message to revisit, now that Oregon's House membership is majority female for the first time in our state's history. 2019 was my first year in the legislature, and none of the women serving in the House Republican caucus served in 2017. And so we stand today to associate ourselves with this letter, which reads in part, recently our colleagues in Sacramento accurately described the inappropriate sexual harassment that is still all too common in state capitals. Our friends in California said it this way, as women leaders in politics in a state that postures itself as a leader in justice and equality, you might assume our experience has been different. It has not. Each of us has endured or witnessed or worked with someone who has experienced some form of dehumanizing behavior by someone with power in our workplaces. People in positions of power have made promises or threats about our jobs in exchange for our compliance or our silence. They have leveraged their power and positions to treat us however they would like.
Oregon's lawmakers are still trying to figure out how to handle these types of allegations. You have one side saying that there should be zero tolerance for any unwelcome advances, and another side saying that people should still be protected from being unfairly accused and having it turn into a political game. I talked about this with our KGW political analyst, Len Bergstein.
Even though the current issue has to do with a couple of legislators, it is magnified. I mean, the concern is doubled and tripled when what we're talking about is the difference between someone who's a young person starting out in their career and they're being subjected to an unfair and really kind of like a harassing atmosphere by someone who's much superior and that they owe something to in terms of their ability to advance or be successful in their career.
Now, with the latest case, the text messages between Representatives Witt and Breeze Iverson have not been made public. An investigator found that she wasn't in physical danger, but recommended that Witt be removed from chairing the committee. We'll keep following this. We'll let you know what we learn next. All right, keep sending your questions and your comments. Use that hashtag #HeyDan. I'm going to read a few of them when we finish the story next. All right, before I get to comments, I want to talk to you about this gigantic thing behind me here. That's one of those QR codes that will take you to our new Story Weekly newsletter. Now, we get emails all the time internally at KGW. They talk about like whose newsletter's doing well and stuff. Well, this thing's blowing up, all right? And I thank all of you at home. People really love this. They see how many people they send it to and how many people actually subscribe or open it. And we are getting a huge response, which tells me that we're doing something right with it. So use your camera on your phone, point it at this gigantic thing on your TV or tablet, or use another phone if you're watching on a phone. I don't know. But it'll take you to a link where you can sign up and get a weekly newsletter from us. We kind of compile all the important stuff from that given week. We know that not everybody can watch every night, and then we kind of add some extra stuff here and there that might not make it to the half hour that you see on TV every single night. But thank you so much to everybody. And if you have any tips, things that you want to see added to the newsletter, things you want to, you think we should subtract from the newsletter, less of me maybe, let us know. Use that hashtag #HeyDan as always. Reach out to us. Getting some emails tonight. I always get interested, because we get such a response. I hear things from people at home that I just never would hear normally. Mark wrote in and say, "Hey Dan, there are just times when your earpiece comes over the top of your ear, causing it to be all like mashed down rather than along the space between your head and ear where the glasses would be. It just looks odd when your face is on the camera and one ear is clearly squished." Is that happening right now? Am I getting a dose of squish ear? Mark, thank you, man, because, zoom in. How's my squish ear looking? Mark, thank you, because it's very important to me that I look good. So it's one of my main priorities up here. So thank you. My ears, thank you. That's a Monday. It felt like a Monday. But Tuesday is upon us. We'll see you then.